Alright, we are now 2 days after UFC 293 with that massive upset from Sean Strickland beating Adesanya via unanimous decision. Pretty much in a dominant one-sided fight. Like, Izzy maybe won 1 round. I mean, I've seen some people make a case for 2, but even then, I think you can make a case for all 5 rounds. And yeah, Sean Strickland went in there and basically just fought his fight, took it to Izzy, and Izzy just had no answer for it. And I think a lot of people were expecting after the fight, like, hey, maybe Adesanya shouldn't get an immediate rematch since he just won the title from Pereira. And I agreed. I didn't really want to see that fight. I saw some people online saying he didn't deserve it. Guys, at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest. As much as I don't want to see it, I do think that Adesanya kind of does deserve it. I mean, look, the guy has defended his title a lot of times. I know technically this is his 2nd title reign where he has no title defenses, but you can't ignore the people he is beaten, right? And at the end of the day, it isn't like he's some no-name guy, right? Like, you would sell pay-per-views. It is a sellable fight, and I feel like that there's enough there, and I'm going to be talking about this in this video, is Dana White kind of made it seem like, hey, that we are going to get that Adesanya-Sean Strickland rematch. What has to change in Adesanya's camp? What does Sean Strickland have to change? What should he do? What are the changes that they need to make going into the rematch? And who do I think is going to win? Because that is an interesting answer, because I would have never imagined myself even predicting this. So it is insane, man. This fight really answered a lot of questions and showed Sean Strickland's high-level defense. So we're going to talk about all that and more, but first I want to remind you guys to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share. We're trying to hit 20K by the end of the year. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, so I know you guys are going to get it done. But guys, yeah, Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya last weekend, they fought, and if you guys haven't heard or you guys lived under a rock, Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya via unanimous decision. Now, this was obviously a massive upset with Sean Strickland being a 6-1 underdog. This was one of the biggest underdog upsets since Juliana Pena beat Amanda Nunes just a couple years ago. And yeah, I don't think anybody expected Sean Strickland, of all people, to make Adesanya look like that, to make him look easy, to be screaming at Adesanya at the end of the fight. So there's been a lot of questions. Is Adesanya hurt? Did Adesanya just look off? Is Sean Strickland actually just the better fighter? There's a lot of things to consider. Now, first thing I want to say is I think that a lot of this had to do with Sean Strickland. I mean, he fought the perfect fight. That's how you have to fight a guy like Adesanya going forward. We saw Alex Burr have similar success when pressuring Adesanya against the cage. You got to pressure Adesanya, take away his kicks, and we just saw Sean Strickland be a better boxer than Israel Adesanya, which is insane to say. I didn't think that that would be possible. I thought Sean Strickland was a good boxer in the UFC, but I didn't think he was that good to beat Adesanya. And yeah, he kind of just exposed Adesanya's flaws. Like, he was very good, very technical. Sean Strickland did a good job when Israel was against the cage. It seemed like Izzy kept trying to, do that Alex Pereira thing he did where he kind of covers up, tries to act like he's, about to get knocked down, and then comes back with a big shot. Strickland was smart. He didn't just try to, go crazy and land a bunch of shots on Adesanya and then gas himself out or get caught with a big shot because he left out in the open. He took his time. He would jab, throw a combination here, back out just so perfectly that Adesanya could not use his kicks, and it was just a boxing fight. Adesanya had no answer, and I think him getting rocked in that first round had a lot to do with Sean Strickland's success. I think Adesanya really was wary of Sean Strickland's power. I feel like he didn't really want to engage so much and was like, man, this is a big moment for him because, let's be honest, the guy's gonna get clowned from losing to Sean Strickland, right? Like, we've already seen it online. People are like, holy shit, Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya. The guy was gonna get it by all ends, so I'm sure that he was very nervous, and I'm sure he just didn't want to get knocked out. So maybe he quit in that fight. I don't know. I'm not saying that, but, maybe he did. Maybe he just didn't want to get knocked out. Now, what are some things that Adesanya did good? I mean, honestly, not a lot. Like, there was a few moments of success when they were open, and Adesanya would land a few good body kicks. I think that is something that is definitely a good takeaway. The body work from Adesanya, I think if he increases that may be very helpful. I also think he's gonna have to work on his foot movement, circling out of the cage. I felt like there were a few moments where Adesanya could have circled out and got back out in the open. He didn't do that. He was just stuck behind the cage. I don't know if he felt more comfortable there, didn't want to keep moving. Maybe he was tired. I don't know. But you're definitely gonna want to keep moving with Sean Strickland. Don't just stay there because, yeah, it's going to be a close fight, and Sean Strickland is going to be able to steal those rounds. So most importantly, I talked about some of the good things that they did in the fight, but I want to talk about some of the negatives and some of the things I think they should do differently. Let's start with Sean Strickland. Right now, although Sean Strickland had a pretty good performance and I would say pretty solidly beat up Israel Adesanya, to me, the fight was too close for comfort, right? Like, it wasn't like a lot of those rounds were dominant for Sean Strickland, right? Even the 4th and 5th round weren't crazy dominant. I think it's clear that he won, but maybe a good shot from Adesanya sways the round, and maybe a judge picks him for that round. So I think that he could have increased the activity a little more, had a few good blitzes when he's against the cage, jab, feint a little bit more, get Adesanya guessing, and I think he should have just been a little bit more active because Sean Strickland wasn't exactly the most active in that fight either. I don't know if it was because he was gun shy. I don't know if it's because he didn't want to get knocked out by Israel Adesanya. I don't know what it was. It was his first title fight, maybe going into the rematch, and that is something I'm going to say is an advantage for Sean Strickland. I think he's going to be a lot more confident going into the rematch, right? He knows he could do this. He did it pretty comfortably in the last fight. I think now with that added confidence, that could only help him, and he knows, hey man, look, I can handle this guy. He's going to be on go from the start, and I think he actually could do better unless Adesanya fixes his game a little bit. And secondly, something I wanted to see Sean Strickland do do a little bit more, but he didn't, is grapple. I think he shot maybe one takedown in the third round, and outside of that, there was really nothing else. His coaches were telling him, hey, you know, shoot for takedowns at the end of the round, trying to steal them. He wouldn't do it, and that's also another thing that could help steal rounds, you know, just even attempting a takedown. Maybe you get some cage control, maybe that sways a judge, right? Because some of those rounds were that close. So I think, you know, if he shoots for takedowns, you know, and gets them on the ground, that could be a huge score for Sean Strickland in that round, and it would just, you know, mix it up and make Izzy go backwards, because you're gonna get a guy going backwards when he's not expecting what you're throwing. If you're going backwards, most of the time that is panic mode, right? Like, there are a lot of fighters that do fight while going backwards. Adesanya is a fighter that could fight good going backwards. However, Sean Strickland was pressuring him just enough to get into that boxing range. Like, Adesanya, you need to get into kicking range to beat Sean Strickland. So with that being said, let me get into some of the things that I think Adesanya needs to do to beat Strickland, because that is probably the more important thing, right? Because Sean Strickland did well. What does Adesanya do if he wants to beat Sean Strickland? Well, I already mentioned it, his footwork. He definitely needs to bring up his footwork, circle out, and get back on the open space. He cannot have his back against the cage. He needs to be out in the open, get into kicking range, kick the legs of Sean Strickland, and kick the body. We saw him have successful body work in some of those rounds. That was mostly how he got the shots across. He landed barely any shots to the head, and it was because Adesanya had a lot of problems landing punches because of Sean Strickland's really good defense. Sean Strickland made this a boxing fight, right? Which is why the Philly shell worked, right? Philly shells don't really work in MMA because of kicking range, right? You can lean into a kick, or you can get taken down, you can get kneed in the head, you can get a spinning attack. You know, those don't really work in MMA, but when you're sticking it to a boxing match where Sean Strickland was in that boxing range, that Philly shell is going to work. Boxing techniques are going to work. Adesanya has to also feint more, but I don't know how well the feints are going to work, because Strickland is a lot better now in the way that he's confident, right? So the feints maybe aren't going to shake him as much as they would have in the first fight. But I think, like I said to you guys in my last video, if you're going to knock out a guy like Sean Strickland, it is going to either take, you know, something really lucky or something really set up. He gets knocked out by the shots he doesn't see coming. You know, if you look at the Alex Pereira fight, I mean, that was a shot that was perfectly set up. Pereira punched the chest, you know, punched low, started, you know, playing with the parrying of Sean Strickland, and he feinted the jab and went for that left hook, knocked down Sean Strickland and hurt him bad. That's what you have to do. You have to set him up. If I'm Adesanya going into a camp with Sean Strickland, you know, for that rematch, I'm working on, you know, maybe 50 setups, saying, hey, you know what, these are shots that could, you know, maybe he doesn't see coming. You know what, hey, I notice he dips his head when I do this. Maybe let me set up some shots. Like, honestly, Sean Strickland is the type of fighter that I would want to set up that 1-2 head kick that everybody's throwing nowadays. He's very head movement, leaning to the left or right, and if you're feinting and you're throwing a lot of different shots, including leg kicks and including body kicks, where he doesn't know if it's coming to the head, the body, that anything, you can catch Sean Strickland. That is how you're gonna have to beat him if you're Adesanya, and I also think that he's gonna have to commit more. I'm sorry, like, the guy threw barely anything to the head. I understand it's hard because, you know, you're not fighting the target, and Sean Strickland's gonna return, and that's just how he is. I mean, with that relentless countering, you know, it's not like a satisfying counter, big left hand, one shot, but it's like you throw one, you miss, and then you get a combo back, where it might not be the most perfectly land shots, but it's gonna count for the score. Honestly, I think whoever wins the rematch is whoever dictates the pace, and that's who won the fight. You know, Sean Strickland dictated his own pace, and I said, look, that was the only way that Sean Strickland was going to win. If he made Izzy fight at his own pace and fight the style of fight that he wanted, which was a boxing match, then yeah, he's going to win. I also think that Israel could even, you know, mix in takedowns of his own and try to, you know, mix it up. I think whoever mixes it up the best is going to win. And that's why I think Sean Strickland should try to mix it up a little bit more, because like I said, those rounds were really, really close. Like I said, maybe if Adesanya lands a takedown in those third round, maybe then he wins that round. Maybe if he lands a takedown, and let's be honest, at any of the rounds besides the first one, maybe he wins those. Those rounds were that close, and it's just too close for comfort for me if I'm a Sean Strickland fan or I'm a Sean Strickland coach. So I'm saying, hey, you know what, we really need to solidify something at the end of the rounds, and that's what Eric Nixick was saying to Sean Strickland, which, by the way, Coach Eric, man, he is one of the greatest coaches in MMA right now. The guy's advice is always on point. Like, look at the Ngannou Gane fight. His advice there was absolutely mind-blowing. He is a great coach. He was telling him that. He was like, hey, man, you need to stamp, you know, this is my round at the end of these rounds by doing something big, getting a big action, whether it is throwing a combination, which, granted, to Sean Strickland, he was throwing a little bit more in those 4th and 5th rounds, trying to seal the deal at the end of those rounds, and that's what I think helped him win the fight, including that third round, too. So he won those rounds based off of that, by doing a big action, because Adesanya wasn't throwing much, you know? Adesanya, we're usually seeing throw a lot more leg kicks, and he did land, I think, like 40, but to be fair, Strickland was checking a lot of kicks. Honestly, guys, looking back on the fight, now that a day has passed, maybe Adesanya was hurt. I mean, I don't know, I noticed that he stopped going southpaw. I rewatched the fight since, and I did notice he was going southpaw in that last round, so maybe I'm off with that. My guess is maybe he hurt his leg, maybe, you know, he got the leg kick checked, maybe he was really fucked up afterwards, you never know, maybe it landed wrong. However, though, I think Sean Strickland just performed really well, and honestly, my prediction for the rematch right now is Sean Strickland, guys. I think Sean Strickland is going to win. I think that even if Adesanya commits to punches, I think Sean Strickland has shown defensively he is better than Adesanya, and I think that he's just going to have Adesanya fight at his own pace again, fight at his own game. I think we're too used to seeing Adesanya like this. I mean, he fought like it in the Pereira fight, in the Pereira rematch. He just got lucky and landed a shot because Pereira is a little bit more open than Strickland is. Strickland is less open, right? So I can't believe I'm saying this, but after Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya, I'm picking him in a rematch. I never would have imagined saying that a couple days ago. However, MMA changes at a flip of a coin, so you never know, guys. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best fan base in MMA. Let me know what you guys want to see next. Let me know who you guys think is going to win the rematch. Like I said, we're trying to hit 20K by the end of the year. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.